Hello, Keith Rucker at VintageMachinery.org. Well, if it looks a little darker in the shop, particularly behind me here today, it's because we got the power cut off to the shop right now. I think I mentioned in a previous video, I've been working the last week or two doing some electrical work to get my rotary phase converter. I've got an American Rotary 40 horsepower phase converter that I've been wanting to get hooked up and where we can actually utilize that three-phase power in the shop. Been working on that last couple of weeks, and I finally got to the point where I need to have the power company come out and disconnect me temporarily so that we could go ahead and finish that installation and get it ready to go. So I'll tell you what, let's take you outside. I'm going to show you a little bit of my electrical work and show you what all we're doing. So before we really get into this video, I just want to start out up front and tell you guys, I am not a licensed electrician. I am not an expert when it comes to electrical code. I worked for an electrician for several years when I was in high school. I understand the principles. My dad was actually in the electrical business for a period of time, and so I understand a lot of it, but I am not a licensed electrician. I have consulted with some electricians. In fact, one person who really kind of helped me out on this was Stan Zinkowski over at Bar Z, and I actually have talked to a couple of other guys as well to kind of make sure what I'm doing is up to code. I've also been working with my local county, which has got to come out and do a final inspection on this. They have not done that yet. We've got them scheduled. They should be out here soon. But just up front, guys, I'm showing you what I've done, but if you got some questions or concerns, so be it. I am trying my best to do this as close to or up to code completely throughout. So anyway, what we're doing out here, this is my meter base, and basically as part of this installation, and really what's kind of been dragging along a little bit for me is that I wanted to upgrade my power coming into the shop. When we built the shop, I put in a 200 amp service coming into the shop, and I quickly realized that I had made a mistake, that I really should have put in a 400 amp service. 200 amps really could power the shop, but with some things that I'm thinking down the road, it's kind of on the edge of where I need to be. I talked with my power company, said no problem, that they would come out here and upgrade me to 400 amps. Of course, I had to do the electrical work to get it ready. So I took my old 200 amp meter base off, which is why I had to get the power company out here to disconnect everything. You can see the old feed wires coming in here. These are not hot right now. They've all been disconnected from the transformer. But we took out the 200 amp meter base. The power company provided me with a 400 amp meter base, and we've got this on here. So inside this 400 amp meter base, basically what I'm doing is I'm splitting this into two 200 amp feeds. And I've already had the shop wired. I've got a 200 amp main panel inside the shop, right behind this wall actually. These wires go through the wall directly into the box behind it. So that 200 amps is feeding the lights, the receptacles, pretty much the main single phase power in the shop. So what I've done is basically we've got that coming out, but we've added a whole nother service over here. And next to it, what I've got is another 200 amp. This is actually it's a load center, but it has pass-through lugs in the bottom. I'm basically just using it as a disconnect. However, as opposed to just using a disconnect here, I opted to go with a breaker panel for a couple of reasons. Number one, I've just got more room in here to work. Number two, if for some reason down the road I wanted to put some more circuits in and I needed them up here, I could tap in here and put some more breakers in here. I really doubt I'll ever do that, but I have that flexibility because you never know what your needs may be down the road. But the biggest thing here is according to code, you have to have, coming out of your meter base, you have to have a disconnect within, I think it's 10 feet. It's not very far. So any lines that come out of there, you have to have a disconnect within about 10 feet of that. So in the case here, I'm using two panels as my disconnects. Of course, we have a disconnect up in the top of the main load center inside the shop. That serves as a disconnect. This box here serves as a disconnect. Again, pass-through lugs, so the 200 amps is coming in the top, 200 amps is going out of the bottom. And I basically got some direct bury cable that's going to go around the shop to where the phase converter is, and we'll go around over there and show you that part. So our direct bury cable is buried in the ground, a minimum of 2 feet deep. It's a little bit deeper that in places, but we made sure we trenched in. Had to hand dig that too, just because it's so close to the shop. I couldn't get in here with a trencher or a backhoe or anything. So I actually hired my buddy Miles McDonald, who's a college student. He watches my channel. He came out here and dug this over his spring break. Made a little cash. But anyway, the power comes up and we go into yet another load center breaker box here. And inside this breaker box, we will be using this for putting in some new circuits. The big one, of course, is going to the rotary phase converter sitting here next to me. So basically got a 150 amp breaker in here. This is a 4-pole, so basically to get that amperage through a regular on-off breaker, you got 2 poles on each of the 2 lines there at half of that. So it'd be basically, there's 475 amp breakers in here too for each of the legs. That goes out of this wire, goes into the rotary phase converter. This is an American Rotary 40 horsepower phase converter. This is a model that's made to be outside, so I've got it outside. It's actually kind of right under the drip line here of the building. I'm going to come in here pretty soon. I'm going to build a little shed over this. I'm also going to probably put an air compressor out here. So eventually, pretty soon again, I'll have a little dog house out here, whatever you want to call it, for added protection over this. But for right now, it is under the eaves, but it really doesn't matter. This thing's designed to be out in the elements. So every time that I talk about 3-phase power and rotary phase converters, I always get a lot of questions like, why do you need a rotary phase converter? Why don't you just call your power company and have them come out and put 3-phase in the shop? Well, that would be my first choice if that was a choice. The problem is that it's not a choice, at least not for me, not where I live. Here in the U.S., unlike a lot of other countries, which will very regularly put 3-phase power right into a residential home, here in the U.S., that's pretty rare. Pretty much what people have is 220 volt single phase, which is basically 2 110 legs off of 3-phase, so they basically 2 of those legs into your home, and that's what you got to work with. In some cases, if you are close to where the 3-phase power is, like on a major road where the power company has it, you can convince them to hook a shop like this up. In my situation, I'm about 3/4 of a mile from the nearest 3-phase on the pole. And it's just unpractical for me to get my power company to come out here and put in my case, it'd be underground service because I'm in a residential area. They're just not going to do it. And if they did do it, the cost would be on me. And for a home shop, they're not going to sell enough 3-phase power to pay for that over any period of time. So it's just really just not an option. So the way we get around that, or the way I'm getting around that, is using a rotary phase converter. I've got this unit here from American Rotary. American Rotary is a sponsor of my channel, and they really helped me by getting this. This is a 40 horsepower rotary phase converter. Basically has a 40 horsepower 3-phase motor in it. And the gist of how this thing works is we take the single phase power, we take those 2 legs off of the 3-phase that comes into my shop here, and we feed that into that 3-phase motor. And then using some capacitors that are all engineered into this box, once you get that motor spinning, it'll actually spin, not under a load, but just free spin, just using the 2 legs. And basically what the motor's doing, this is a very oversimplified version of it, but it's generating that 3rd leg. It's generating that 3rd leg of the 3-phase power. And using single phase, you can use rotary phase converter to generate 3-phase power to put into your shop, and that's what I'm doing. These American Rotary units are great, and if you're interested in one or you need one for your shop, I know a lot of my viewers in the U.S. I get a lot of questions about these. They do have a deal where if you purchase one from them, they have a checkout code, or if you talk to them on the phone, you can give them the coupon code VINTAGE10. Just that word, VINTAGE10, since they are a sponsor on my channel, and they will actually give you a 10% discount if you need to purchase a rotary phase converter. So just keep that in mind if you're in the market for one. So now we're inside the shop again, and basically right behind me, this wall here, is the rotary phase converter. That line that comes into the back, through the wall, into the back of this panel. And what we have here is a 3-phase load center. So instead of being a regular 2-phase load center, this is a 3-phase load center. The only thing that will power out of here is our 3-phase feeds that will then go to the different machines in the shop. I've got just one receptacle plugged in right here right now into the box, just something to start with. Right now I can just run a cord through here. Eventually, as I have time and money and everything else, I'll be running conduit out of this and running drops in various places throughout the shop where I can then plug my machines in, and that'll all come back to this load center. Again, with a 40 horsepower phase converter, I'm going to be generating a good bit of power. It will not be a problem for most of my machines to be able to run multiple machines at one time, should I choose to do so, or should I have the need to do so. You know, when I fire up the big Monarch, which if I put the 20 horse motor in there that came in originally, you know, that might be kind of the limits of what it would do. But in reality, I could probably even run at least one other machine off with this phase converter. It should power anything I've got to run in here. But anyway, we'll be running more circuits out of this as time permits. But with that, sorry guys, no machining content this week because I don't have any power to turn on any machines. I've got some work that I need to do, but we got to get this electrical work done. Next step is I just finished this up this evening. I'm shooting this on a Thursday evening. After work, I'll be contacting the county in the morning to see when they can get their inspector to come out. He'll take a quick look at all my wiring. Everything should be fine and up to code. Like I said, I've talked with multiple people to make sure that everything's cool. And assuming everything is cool, which I think it will be, they'll sign off on it, call the power company will come in and get me hooked back up. So hopefully within the next week, we'll have our power back on and we'll have good 3-phase power in the shop. So with that, that's pretty much gonna be a wrap. Again, sorry I don't have more this week. I do want to just make one further comment though, and I try not to plug this too much, but all this electrical work that I'm doing, I've been putting it off a little bit, mainly because it's fairly expensive. And I've still got some more expenses to do with running all the new circuits that come out of here. And what's really enabled me to do this is the guys out there, you guys out there who are sponsoring my channel through Patreon. I've been using that Patreon money, saving that Patreon money up, and that's what is really helping me with a lot of these shop improvements. So I want to specifically thank all of my Patreon supporters out there, because without you guys, it might be who knows when before I could actually get this done. So thank you very much to all those Patreon supporters. Thank you to all of my viewers and subscribers out there for just watching. That's plenty good enough. That's all I need from anybody out there is just keep watching my channel. That's my main goal. But I do want to just personally say thank you to those Patreon supporters who did help make this possible. And if you would like to support my channel through Patreon, there's a link at the end of the video. There's a link down in the description. And I think there's even a link on the homepage where you can click on that and support the channel through Patreon. Not a requirement, but always appreciated. So with that, guys, thank you very much for watching. And I hope to have some power back in here very soon so that we can get on some projects, because I've got a long list of work that needs to be done, and we're going to get on to it just as soon as we can. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you later.